Frank Gaffney, General Jerry Boykin, and also Eric Stakelback are here. And I asked, at what point, General, do we have not enough blood left in us? And somebody in the military has got to stand up and say, we are being destroyed from within. At what point? Who makes that call? And how do you know when to make that call?
So far, Glenn, what we've seen is it's actually the retired community that has stood up and had a voice on these issues that are impacting our military so much. You know, there was a guy named Harold K. Johnson, former Chief of Staff of the Army, who said he went to his grave regretting that he didn't stand up to Lyndon Johnson over activating the Guard and Reserves. And I must tell you that I think a lot more of our general officers and flag officers need to be thinking in terms of the fact that they're going to have to live with what they do or do not do, and right now it's more a matter of not doing. They're going to have to live with that the rest of their lives. I made some statements when I was in the military, which I was pilloried for in the media. I was received a lot of criticism, but I stand by those things because I believed at that time that they were true, and I know now they've been confirmed to be true. So.
You didn't answer the. Did you notice he didn't answer the question? He didn't answer the question.
Could I offer a suggested answer? Mm-hmm. It's now. This is the point. You know, are we dead? No. Are we on the table bleeding out? Yes, unmistakably. I'll give you an anecdote. I had a conversation with a couple of military personnel yesterday in my office. Senior people, thoughtful people, very much on the case. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say they had never heard of Sharia before. They didn't know about it. They asked how it is that the Muslims who were serving with them had never mentioned it. The expert trainers that they brought in, the interfaith dialogues that they've been having, this had never come up. And the reason it's never come up, Glenn, is because it is part and parcel of that plan. That strategic
just so you know,
plan.
This is the plan you were talking about, Eric.
Right.
This is the plan. And in this book, Sharia, the Threat to America, it explains the plan. It breaks it up. This is all in Arabic, so I can't tell you what it says here. This is all been translated, and so you know what they're saying. This is Muslim Brotherhood.
What they're saying is, we will destroy them from within, as Eric said, by their hands. And part of that involves keeping us witless about what they're doing, making it a blasphemy to talk about this, to ensure that the people who are in government offices and in the media and, you know, otherwise opinion shapers or influencers are unnoticed, that they will be racists, bigots, and Islamophobes. I'm going
to tell you the story. I was on ABC and signed a big deal with ABC, and it was all glorious and wonderful. The day they announced it, CARE went. CARE came to the table, and they went to Disney and everybody else and damn near shut that thing down. Now, ABC will deny that, and I'm sure they will, and God bless them for that. But I'm telling you, CARE has power beyond people's understanding, and these networks move because of CARE. They have them in their offices. Many of them have, our White House, if I'm not mistaken, have them in the White House.
You know, Glenn, the thing that kills me about CARE's high-level access is they were named as an unindicted co-conspirator in the largest terrorism financing trial in American history. They were named in the largest terror financing trial in U.S. history.
You sure wouldn't hear that anywhere.
You won't.
They're not discredited.
Of course.
You're discredited. You're a kook. You're a kook. You're a kook. I'm a kook. But not them.
And another
We're a danger, not them.
Real quick about the documents that we're talking about, these Muslim Brotherhood documents, I can assure you, Frank and Jerry, I know you can back me up on this, that 95% of our elected officials don't even know they exist.
No, I know.
Let alone have read them. What's the first rule of war, General? Know your enemy.
You know what? Can I tell you something? That infuriates me. I've had a few frank conversations with a few people in Congress. How dare you? How dare you? Did you not raise your hand? What do you think this is, a picnic? What do you think this, what time is it? And you're going to Washington, you The blood of everybody in this nation is on your hands. The freedom of all those who could be free from this point forward, that lose it on your head. You're just going to Washington and you're just kind of, you're getting briefed by some pimply, faced 18-year-old kid who's your age, who's your aide. What are you talking about? Do your own homework. I don't know about you. I know you guys have all lost sleep in the last 10 years doing your own homework, making sure it was right, because you knew your job, and my job were all at stake. So we did our homework and we lost sleep. I have no sympathy for those in Congress who don't know. I will tell you that either in a court, in earthly court or a heavenly court, they will be tried and held accountable for what they didn't do. Back in just a second. It has been a year since Egypt put the Arab Spring into motion. Actually, Tunisia, I think, is the one that will be remembered as the Archduke Ferdinand moment. You're a war man, so you've studied war. Agree with that or disagree? That's the Archduke Ferdinand moment, the guy sitting in the front.
It was the beginning.
Yeah. The government was applauding it. We were warning about the dangers to come, the rise of radical Islam, those who are plotting for a caliphate, seizing power and working together with socialists and communists and radicals all over the world. Our guests continue here for the remainder of the next hour. And I want to talk a little bit about what has happened, because I mean it, even members of my own family still say, he's crazy. None of that's happening. That's all wrong. That's just nonsense. Members of my family are saying that. I can't imagine what the average person has to go through who doesn't know it chapter and verse. How do they defend it? Offer some evidence that all of this stuff a year later now is absolutely visible and provable. For instance, all the stuff in this is available, and it's all available in public domain, right? You can find any of this out in public domain, but people don't. So show me who wants to start on what's happening in the Middle East and how it's jumping over here.
Well, look, you're seeing an arc develop, as you talked about a year ago, Glenn. You're seeing an arc develop throughout North Africa, throughout the Middle East, of Islamist regimes. They have fallen like dominoes. It's been stunning how fast it's happened in the span of 14 months. And what you're seeing now, as you laid out in your monologue, is calls for the caliphate, the Islamic caliphate. This is clearly not a democratic movement. All the chips are falling in place. If you're the Muslim Brotherhood, if you're Turkey, if you're any of these groups, all the chips are falling into place. You feel that the wind is at your back in the span of 14 months. You're close to getting what you want. I do believe we'll see, if they don't call it officially, we are the caliphate. You're going to see, in the very least, a loose affiliation. These countries will unite with Islamist
United Islamic States.
Yes, right. Militarily, economically,
under Sharia,
politically, to take on Israel and the West, and that will be a formidable foe, especially if one of those nations acquires nuclear weapons.
Glenn, one of the things that I think we would encourage people to take a look at, our colleague Steve Coughlin, who I spoke of earlier, who wasn't allowed to brief the CIA because CARE claimed he was an Islamophobe. And by the way, it's an interesting digression quickly. The Department of Homeland Security, which has at least 10 Muslim Brotherhood operatives, known to be such, on their advisory council, got the White House direction to now decide who's going to be allowed to do any training in the United States government. And guess what the guidelines promulgated by these Muslim brothers in our wire say? It says you have to vet the trainers and their training materials with community leaders before they can be blessed to do this training. Well, the community leaders, of course, since we're not dealing with Zuhdi Jassers, we're dealing with Muslim brothers, means you're basically turning over to the enemy the dictate as to who will tell us what's the nature of the enemy and what's afoot. Now, let me just very quickly, if I may make this one quick point. There is a timeline that predates Tunisia that your audience and you need to know about. In July of 2010, Inspire magazine, the glossy publication of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, then under the management of Anwar al-Awlaki, who, until he hived off to Yemen to wage war against us, was waging it inside the wire in Fairfax, Virginia, at the Dar al-Hijra Mosque. Anwar al-Awlaki's magazine threw down the gauntlet on behalf of Al-Qaeda to the Muslim Brotherhood and said, it's time to go to war. Enough of this stealth jihad business, enough of this civilization jihad, enough of this sort of trying to take them down from within quietly, stealthily. It's time to go to war. And in September of 2010, the then new supreme guide, you mentioned him in your monologue, Mohammed Badi.
No, the provocative.
No, this isn't the red.
I love. He's just provocative.
This is another
with a red beard.
This is another very, very dangerous dude.
Got it.
He said, "We're going to war." He did. So it took another couple of months for this thing to kick off. But part of why Eric's exactly right. This thing moved inexorably, sweeping through, and we haven't seen the end of it. Is because the Brotherhood started engaging quite explicitly, initially a little bit behind the scenes, but now unmistakably in front of them.
Go ahead.
And we talk about educating the American people. That's what this show is all about. Now, the Obama administration is deliberately misleading the American people because they're saying, we got bin Laden. Pack up your bags and go home. It's all over. The war on terror is over. Bin Laden's done. Al-Qaeda's on the ropes, ladies and gents. Well, meanwhile, Al-Qaeda's down, but they're not out. That's another conversation. But under this administration, larger threats than Al-Qaeda have festered and grown more serious. The Muslim Brotherhood, Hezbollah, and yes, Iran have grown so much more dangerous and stronger over the past 3 years.
What's happening in...
Well, we got bin Laden, don't worry.
What's happening with Venezuela and Cuba and the help from Iran and the visits from Iran, I mean, that should be a warning. And now the missiles from Iran and the new television broadcast for all of South America and Latin America, that's crazy.
It's a forward base to attack
We
America.
have Hezbollah. Is it Hezbollah that is on our border now, just in Tijuana? And Hamas. I mean, it's crazy what's going on. We have 5, who can tell me the last time you heard of 5 Americans being beheaded? The only time I ever remember people's heads being taken off is Jeffrey Dahmer. That's it. And it was a big deal. We've had 5 beheadings in the United States, deep inside the United States. Media's not telling us anything about it.
We had Daniel Pearl also.
Well,
No, but I mean in the last few months, here in the United States.
I was, after our last session last week, I went down to Arizona. I was down on the border, and I talked to a Border Patrol agent down there who is a retired agent now, who showed me some very graphic slides of the kind of mutilation that's taking place on the U.S. side of the border, severed heads as well as bodies that have just been cut into pieces. And I've talked to your producers about this guy because I think that you'll be interested, and it is reflective of the influence of Al-Qaeda and the Muslim Brotherhood in Mexico.
Hezbollah.
We're seeing